I asked a question on Twitter the other day. It was during the Bulls game against the Oklahoma City Thunder when the Bulls were having another terrible start to the game, and I asked, is this team worse than the Bulls of the Jim Boylen era? Now, I was kind of being facetious about it because even though this current team is bad, the Jim Boylen era, the Bulls could barely muster 25 plus wins, although this could very well be the trend for this current team the way things are going. But I say that I was half kidding when asking in the middle of that game. But after watching tonight's game, seeing the Bulls fall to 5-12, 13th in the East, and already 3.5 games back behind the last spot in the play-in, already being that far back in the standings, and we're not even through November, is absolutely pathetic, an embarrassment. Because here's the thing, as bad as those teams were during the Jim Boylen coaching days, as asinine of a coach as he was, and yeah, it was rare to see the Bulls win games during those days, they were expected to be bad. They were trying to be bad. They were rebuilding. And they were trying to build through the draft to get the highest picks possible. Didn't work out because they didn't draft well, and they didn't get lucky in the draft lottery in the years that they were trying to tank for Luka or tanking for Zion in the following year. And in those years under Jim Boylen, the Bulls had crap talent. Felicio, Valentine, Hutchinson, Paul Zipser, Ryan Arcidiacono. The Bulls had to start guys like Justin Holiday and Jerian Grant. And yet somehow, the product of basketball we're seeing before us and the overall level of performance is kind of on par with those rosters. And so while yes, I know this is a game recap video and I'll get to the game briefly, but me starting out this video this way is what leads me into Billy Donovan. I mentioned this on Twitter and it got a lot of reaction from people, and I'll say it here again. Billy Donovan, throughout his tenure with the Bulls, has more or less gotten a pass from the media, not from the fans, because fans have been going in on Billy Donovan ever since the Bulls collapsed after the All-Star break in the 21-22 season when they were the #1 seed in the East. But I'm more so talking about the media, local media, national media, NBA analysts, what have you. While they have been critical of Billy Donovan a little bit here and there, he's mostly flown under the radar when it comes to the Bulls and their performance of this team. The blame has either primarily been on the front office or the players and the lack of heart, effort, and determination they have showed on the court. Which, don't get me wrong, there is certainly a level of accountability and blame that needs to be put on the front office and the players, which I've harped on before in the past. But at what point do we take a step back and start putting some serious blame on the coaching staff here for the Bulls' terrible performance? Because I realized even I myself have given Billy a pass to some extent. Yes, I've been critical of him. I've said since starting the channel I was never a fan of that hire because he's one of the great college coaches whose coaching style doesn't translate well to the NBA, how he's benefited in OKC from having a lot of superstars and future Hall of Famers on his roster, and yes, I've also said before he should be fired even though he won't be. But at the end of the day, I've never really gone in on Billy Donovan or put a good deal of onus on him for the Bulls more or less being average to below average since February of 2022. Yes, we blame Zach for his flaws or not really having his head in the game, making poor decisions, DeMar for playing heavy ISO ball, slowing down the offense, pounding the ball, and not finding the open man when he's double teamed. Yeah, we've blamed Vucevic for his lackluster effort at times, missing point-blank layups, his outside shot falling off since his days from Orlando, Patrick Williams being too passive and not really showing any progress since he entered the league. We've thrown blame around everywhere for this team. That for a team that has the talent they do to barely being able to string wins together and sitting 7 games below 500, 17 games into the season at 13th in the Eastern Conference. Like, yes, we get it. This team doesn't fit well together. The roster construction overall is not good, and that's on the front office. But they should not be this bad. They should not be sitting 27th in offensive rating, dead last in the league in pace, and averaging just 106.4 points per game in the NBA, which is second to the last in the league, only behind the Portland Trail Blazers, a team that is in a full-blown rebuild. Like, as much as we want to complain about the personnel on this team, how the shooting profile isn't there, how the guys are soft, whatever, they should not be this bad. They should not be worse than some of the rebuilding teams in the NBA who are trying to lose. The Bulls are trying to win, and they haven't even won back-to-back games so far this season, 17 games into the year. And this is with a fairly easy schedule to start the year. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the Bulls' next 10 games. There is a world where they might not even win one of those games with the way that they're playing. I would be shocked if they won 3 of their next 10 games. This team should not be this bad, and that's on Billy Donovan. Because even as bad as the makeup of the roster might be, yeah, you don't have the highest effort guys on the court. Yeah, some of the guys on the roster might be a little lazy, they don't hustle on defense, or they get down on themselves when the game isn't going their way, the fit isn't there. It's still on the coaching staff to correct that as much as you possibly can and get the best out of your players. It's on the coach to get in the locker room, build these guys up, and inspire them to be the best that they can be. And look, I'm not saying we should expect Billy Donovan to make these guys a contending team. I'm not even saying they should be a top 6 team in the East, because we already knew there were problems with this roster and some serious flaws, but I'll say it again, they should still not be this bad. It is inexcusable to have the level of talent you have on the roster and a balance of offense and defensive players, and you're one of the worst offensive teams in the league. That should not happen. And look, I think we all know if this was any other team, the coach would have been fired by now for the piss poor start they've had to the year, and especially after having a disappointing season last year and the season before that where they collapsed at the end of the year and got embarrassed in the playoffs. Any other coach would have been fired by now, no question. Most likely during the offseason, but especially after a game like tonight. They would have been gone. Because here's the thing, it's pretty clear Donovan has lost the locker room. They don't believe or buy into his system because it hasn't been working for them. Guys are missing assignments. A lot of guys aren't playing with a sense of energy or urgency when they're out on the court. They've checked out. And you can see that clearly on the court between their body language, their level of frustration, and their lack of effort that they display during the game. And it's too late at this point. There really is nothing they can do. The guys are already out on Billy Donovan. It's not like he's going to do something that's suddenly going to change their mind or view him in a different way in his system. They know it doesn't work, and it's not going to work with this group. So yes, we can talk about how the coach isn't the one missing shots, how he's not the one missing defensive assignments, you can't coach effort, all of that stuff. While to an extent, some of that is true, but it's also on the coach to fix the issues before him, get the most out of his team despite the circumstances before him. And when guys aren't playing hard, they're not playing their role, they're not following through on what needs to be done for the team, you're letting them know about it. And if they continue, you're benching them until they figure it out. Like, as bad as the Bulls have been to start games this season, coming out super lethargic and getting in deep holes to start the game, that's just as much on the coach as it is on the players, because it shows Billy Donovan isn't riding these guys hard enough in practice, and it shows the players clearly don't have a lot of respect for their own coach. Anyway, I just realized I have been ranting about Billy Donovan and haven't even talked about this game yet. Yeah, bad game. Bulls made somewhat of a comeback late, like they always do after digging themselves in a massive hole, but it wasn't enough yet again. They've been eliminated from qualifying for the quarterfinals in the in-season tournament, 0-3 thus far in tournament games. Really, the only bright spots from this game was that Zach Lavine went off after barely taking any shots the last 2 games, had his most efficient game of the season, 36 points, was incredible in the first half, shot 16 for 23 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3. Get that trade value up, Zach. I'll take that. And then the other bright spot, Patrick Williams actually had a good game coming off the bench. Dude actually pulled some moves and getting to the basket and had some big shots and getting the Bulls back into the game. 12 points, 5 rebounds for Pat on 4 for 8 shooting. Outside of that, yeah, there was nothing really to be happy about from this game. Caruso left early in the third quarter as his foot got stepped on, I believe. Even worse news, because not only do the Bulls really need him, but they also can't risk him getting injured in the event they look to trade him. But no updates on that as of yet. Sounds like it was a minor thing and the Bulls didn't want to risk putting him back out there. The Bulls were terrible on the defensive glass, giving the Raptors way too many second chance opportunities, giving up offensive rebounds to them. Free throw disparity, 3-point disparity, all of that bad. The Bulls only had 20 assists as a team compared to the Raptors 32, and the Bulls remain last in the league in assists. And again, even some of the bad rebuilding teams who are trying to lose, they move the ball around better than the Bulls do. Just pathetic. It's only November, and I almost can't even wait for the next season to be here. Anyway, let me know your guys' thoughts on the game in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.